Dave has a dilemma. What to put on Wendy's new bacon cheeseburger?
Dave, something mild. Play it safe.
Come on, don't be a wimp. Give it some zing.
Oh no, Gouda would be nice.
Spice it up. How about pepper jack?
Oh my.
Well, Dave started cooking. A quarter pound of fresh beef, 3 strips of bacon, the perfect sauce, and a slice of pepper jack cheese for a bacon cheeseburger that's really spicy.
Oh, Dave, be careful. Mind your own business.
Attaboy.
Wendy's new pepper jack bacon cheeseburger.
Gotta be the cheese.
There is truth in advertising, yes I swear. Got new Nikes on my feet and Vidal Sassoon in my hair. I can sure use a Budweiser Fruit of the Loom underwear. There is truth in advertising, I swear. Why would they lie to me when they love what they sell? Plus we all know that the liars have a special fire in hell. On the television, radio, and in the magazines, the advertising gods perpetuate the American dream. Advertising, let it be, let it be. Now I know that I don't need to buy everything to try to sell me, but so easily divided is a fool and is money. There is truth in advertising, let it be. Why would they lie to me when they love what they sell? Plus we all know that the liars got a special fire in hell. On the television, radio, and in the magazines, the advertising gods perpetuate American dream.
Hi, I'm Wendy's founder, Dave Thomas. From the day I opened the first Wendy's, my goal has been to serve the best hamburger in the business.
You know, we get told a lot that the mascots we feature on this series aren't actually defunct, and, more often than not actually dead. This is because most of them weren't real people, even if they were characters portrayed by real people. As such, we have spent a good amount of time reciting the fact that the title of this series is a bit of a misnomer, in the sense that, yes, we don't actually mean dead. What we mean is that they've lost their iron grip on pop culture that they once held. But every so often, we cover someone who wasn't a fictional character, and who has, in fact, died. Dave Thomas is one of those people. To say that Thomas's career was a fluke is by far the most incorrect thing. At age 12, he had his first job at Regis Restaurant, a fine dining restaurant in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, but lost it in a dispute with his boss. Decades later, Regis installed a large autographed poster of Thomas just inside their entrance, which remained until the business itself shuttered in 2010. What a better way to prove to your former boss that you were an integral part of the company than for said company that fired you to put a big-ass image of you there. Thomas continued this, for the record, later working at the Hobby House restaurant in Fort Wayne, Indiana, when he was 15 years old. So Thomas's career in the food industry was just something that he had always been doing. Seemed to come naturally to him, really. But perhaps the single most important aspect of Thomas's life wasn't even the creation of the chain Wendy's, but in fact his participation in the company of KFC. In the mid-1950s, KFC founder Colonel Sanders came to Fort Wayne looking to work with established businesses with whom he could entrust them to sell franchises. During this time, Thomas, after some initial hesitation, worked with Sanders on many projects that ultimately made KFC more profitable and gave it brand recognition. One of Thomas's most profound pieces of advice, however, would turn out to be one that he himself would eventually be forced to take. He suggested that KFC make commercials in which Sanders personally appeared. In 1968, after having increased sales in 4 of the KFCs he worked with, he sold his share in them back to Sanders for more than $1.5 million. This money and experience would then help to create Wendy's about a year later. But before we get to all of that, there's something else we need to talk about in regards to the company, and that is the confusion that comes with the fact that Wendy's mascot, for a very long time, wasn't in fact the redhead in the logo. Even today, it's arguable that she's the mascot and is instead relegated more to a brand image than anything else. It's a weird situation because when Thomas opened the first Wendy's in Dublin, Ohio, he named it after his then 8-year-old daughter, Melinda Lou, whose nickname was Wendy. This nickname stemmed from her inability to say her own name at a young age, which is kind of insulting, right? To take the fact that your child can't pronounce their name and then put that on a company that will endure the test of time and be recognized for decades. Kind of a dick move, Dave. Kind of a dick move. Thomas, however, did admit to regretting naming the franchise after her, saying he should have just named it after himself because it put a lot of pressure on her. Then again, I don't know that I, or anyone else, would eat at a place simply called Dave's. That somehow sounds less enticing. But Wendy was never the mascot, and this has eternally confused people, to the point where many people even questioned if Wendy was an actual person. Even stranger is that, in November 2010, she began appearing in Wendy's ads on camera for the first time. Her voice had previously been featured in a 1989 ad, giving her father advice off camera, but this was the first time she'd be actually physically shown on screen. These ads first aired in various locations such as Las Vegas test markets, before being rolled out internationally. However, these ads didn't have much of a lifespan as she was eventually replaced by a thinner actress. At the time, people were starting to go hard on fast food being heavily linked to obesity, and Wendy, being a heavier set woman, ended up being a primary target, I suppose. But still, imagine this. Imagine having a business named after you that you aren't the mascot of, then you do ads for them as an adult, and then you're replaced because your image doesn't fit the company. You know, the company bearing your name? Advertising is a fickle bitch. So if Wendy wasn't the mascot, despite being the recognizable image we all know, who was? Well, turns out it was Dave himself, but not initially. Remember Clara Peller? After her abysmal and rather rudely public firing, Wendy's slumped in sales for 2 years. The brand wasn't doing well, and firing Peller was a big part of why. Then, in 1989, Thomas took his own advice that he'd previously offered Sanders and began appearing as a spokesperson in a series of commercials for the brand. He wasn't a natural actor, though, and so initially his performances were criticized as stiff and awkward. However, by 1990, Wendy's advertising agency, Backer Spielvogel Bates, made the decision to have Thomas portrayed in a more self-deprecating and folksy manner, which proved far more popular with test audiences. As a direct result, consumer brand awareness of Wendy's eventually regained levels it hadn't achieved since Peller's campaign of 1984. And, because of the way Thomas held himself, he quickly became a household name. In a company survey in the 90s, a decade during which Thomas starred in every Wendy's ad that aired, they found that 90% of Americans knew who Thomas was. And, after more than 800 commercials, it was clear Thomas played a major role in the company's status as the third most popular burger restaurant in the US. For the record, I would like to reiterate that number: 800. Dave Thomas starred in more than 800 commercials. While editing this video, we could only find 177 of those easily accessible. Not only does this make Wendy's Dave Thomas ads lost media, which is hilarious in its own right, but also shows just how many of those goddamn things there were. In fact, the only mascot I can come up with being remotely close to Thomas is perhaps Ronald McDonald, who isn't even a real person in a sense. Funny that it's another burger mascot, though. For God's sakes, the man was on TV screens between the years, in total, of 1981 to 2002. The weird thing was, Thomas had retired in 1982, but was brought back to do the advertising after another ad campaign, post the Peller era, failed to inject the company with the business boost it had been looking for. The poor man literally worked until he died, though perhaps that was his decision more than anything else. He clearly loved what he did. His appearance in the 800-plus commercials made him one of the most recognizable spokespeople in the country, according to Celebrity Net Worth. He also holds the Guinness World Record for the highest number of TV commercial appearances made by a company founder, which is a very specific achievement, might I add. I'd also like to point out that the real people who aren't portraying characters but are appearing in advertisements for said company are often considered spokespeople and not mascots. What that distinction actually is remains to be seen. But the man has to be one of the most successful, easily recognized ones we've covered, and frankly, even with the company's disgusting treatment of Peller, he deserves the recognition simply for the scope of his work alone. Thomas had been afflicted with a carcinoid neuroendocrine tumor for a decade before it finally metastasized to his liver. He died at his home in Fort Lauderdale, Florida on January 8, 2002, at the hilarious age of 69. He was buried in Union Cemetery in Columbus, Ohio. At the time of his death, there were more than 6,000 Wendy's operating in North America. As of today, September 2024, there are currently 6,949, so that number hasn't really increased, but there's only so many markets you can glut with the same company. Sadly, these days, Wendy's doesn't even have a mascot. Sure, they still have the cartoonish version of his daughter, but their ads are entirely devoid of a person or character promoting said restaurant. And instead, like far too many restaurant ads now, solely focus on the products they serve rather than someone enticing you to come in to try them. Perhaps advertising has changed. Perhaps we no longer yearn to see a familiar, friendly face looking to convince us to try their new fresh burgers, and instead would prefer to see the very thing we're intending to ingest. I don't know. Personally, I think the day we lost interest in advertising mascots is the day we lost something in general as a culture. There was a unique bond there that simply seeing the product itself cannot replicate. But I think we're all so jaded and cynical now that we know we're being sold something. So that connection is even harder to create when we're greatly aware of the negative effects of capitalism. That being said, I also don't think any campaign warrants 800-plus commercials. That just feels excessive. Sure makes our job producing this easier, though. Dave Thomas's life wasn't all that thrilling, nor was his ad campaign all that exciting. Really, the longevity of it here is the key thing here, and for that alone, I suppose it deserves to be recognized. Is Dave Thomas a mascot? That remains to be seen. But in the end, you can't question the impact he had on the public perception of the company, not to mention his hand in, creating said company. There is something to be said, I think, for utilizing real people over fictional characters in your advertising. Sure, one can endure eternally so long as you recast, whereas the other will eventually die, as humans tend to do, but at the same time it's somewhat oddly endearing. Dave Thomas was just a guy who loved his daughter and loved burgers. How much more relatable can you get?